We are teaching autistic kids how to talk about their feelings or how they feel inside, talking about private events or internal states. My name is Carrie Woodward, and I'm a board-certified behavior analyst, and I've been working with autistic children and adults for over 20 years now. Parents often talk to me about what they hope and wish for their kids, skills that their child will eventually be able to learn. And this might be one of the top requests that I hear from parents, is a desire for their children to be able to articulate how they're feeling, to talk about what is happening inside of them, whether that's emotional states, feeling sad, feeling anxious, feeling upset, having hurt feelings, or if it's actual physical states that are internal that parents can't see when our kids are in pain, if they're sick, when something's going on. Because often when there is a language barrier blocking our children from being able to talk about these internal states, it leaves parents guessing about what's going on and how the parent can do anything to help their child feel better. So when we talk about these complex skills, I first want to go into what the prerequisites are. We can't just start by teaching the skill to the child. We actually have to start from a basic level and gradually build in complexity until we get to that complex skill. And a lot of complex skills are a combination of multiple skills that are all coming together in order to create this complex behavior. Talking about internal states or private events is incredibly complex, and the difficulty lies in the fact that we can't see it in order to give the language to our child. So when we're teaching our children how to talk about things that we can all see, like this is a banana or these are flowers, we all have access to see what it is. I can see it. I can give the language to my child who can see it. So it makes teaching language a lot easier when it's about things that are tangible that we can all see. When we move to intangible things, private events, things that are happening inside of our body, this becomes so tricky because we, as the parent, can't see what's happening to give our child the language they need to use. So the first prerequisite is an ability to talk about things that everybody can see, a strong repertoire of identifying and talking about things in the physical environment, a large number of things that they see that they can tell you the name of. If they see a picture, they could describe it. If they are asked to talk about something that they're watching, they could tell you. So there has to be a very, very strong language foundation with things that you can see. The second necessary prerequisite is an ability to just discuss or talk about feelings and emotions. This language has to already exist in your child's repertoire about other people. So they can use words like happy, sad, hurt, in pain, anxious, when looking at other people, because that language has to now already exist in your child's vocabulary before we can use that language to start describing some of their own internal feelings. So if your child has those two skills, a robust repertoire of things that they can talk about in the physical environment, as well as existing vocabulary to describe and talk about all of the internal states that we hope that they will be able to describe about themselves, that they can use that language already when discussing about other people. So if your child does not have those prerequisite skills, there is no way that you are going to be able to teach them to begin talking about how they feel inside. You have to first work on developing the language to describe feelings and emotions about other people. And you have to make sure that your child has a very, very solid foundation on language to describe what's happening in their physical environment, things that they can see, that we can all see. When we begin talking about how to teach children to discuss their internal feelings or private events, things that are going on beneath the skin, we use two different strategies. The first strategy is called public accompaniment. And this simply means that there are signs or cues that often accompany an internal state. We can use these cues to signal what we think our child is feeling and then give our child the language to describe what's happening on the inside. So let's take, for example, that your child has a toothache. Some of the public accompaniment to the toothache might be visible, red, swollen gums. Maybe your child is salivating more than normal, or maybe they have stinkier breath than normal, some cue that there is an infection in the mouth. Another form of public accompaniment is when you actually watch an event happen that may have triggered some sort of internal event. So regarding the toothache, maybe you were watching your child eat popcorn and saw them bite down really hard on an unpopped kernel. So all of these are sort of clues that might cue you into the fact that your child might be experiencing pain in their tooth. So we would say that all of these things publicly accompany the private event of internal pain in the mouth. We use all of these clues to help us determine what's happening. Then we can begin to give language to our child to describe it. Oh, your tooth must hurt. Oh, say, oh, I have a toothache, or my tooth hurts, or ouch, my mouth hurts. So we're giving them the language to describe. And what is happening here is that just like teaching any other form of language, we are pairing the verbal with the event itself. And this pairing together over time is what's going to solidify the use of this language the next time that your child experiences a similar sensation. The second way that we can work on giving language to our child to describe internal states is something called collateral responses. And this means that there are other behaviors that might accompany the internal state. So the behaviors may be happening collaterally along with whatever feeling it is that your child is experiencing. So going back to the toothache, there might be behaviors that our child engages in that cues us that there's pain in the mouth. Whether that's maybe holding their cheek, maybe they're only chewing on one side of their mouth and avoiding chewing on the side where the toothache is. Or maybe your child's wincing every time that they bite down or chew on something. These are all behaviors. So they're collateral responses. They are actual behaviors that your child is engaging in that often go along with some sort of internal state. And again, we use public accompaniment and collateral responses to sort of cue us as to what might be happening inside of our child to then be able to give them the language to describe it. Let's use these two strategies to teach our child to talk about the fact that they may have a stomach ache. Public accompaniment. What are the things that I'm looking for that might signal to me that there's a stomach ache happening? Maybe my child has really smelly gas. Maybe my child's experiencing some diarrhea. Or maybe I observed my child eat a full bowl of cherries, something that often triggers an upset stomach for her. Collateral responses. What behaviors might my child engage in to signal to me that they have a stomach ache? Maybe they're holding their belly and sort of curled over. Maybe they have a grimace of pain on their face. Maybe they're avoiding food and not wanting to eat any food. So using the public accompaniment, those things that might go along with having a tummy ache, as well as the other behaviors that my child is engaging in, I can use these two things to draw the conclusion that my child's experiencing a stomach ache. Now I can give language to my child. Oh, it looks like your tummy aches. Can you say, my tummy hurts, my stomach hurts, I have a stomach ache? So whatever the words are that you want your child to use in the future to describe this sensation, use those words and then have your child repeat those words while they're experiencing the sensation. What we want is that the pain that they are experiencing is accompanied with the language that they are using so that these two things start to have a relationship together. That when I feel this feeling, these are the words that I'm going to use to talk about it. You can also set up questions that you might ask your child in the future. So you might say, how are you feeling? And then coach your child to say, I have a stomach ache. Or how does your tummy feel? My tummy hurts. These are things you might ask in the future if you suspect that your child is experiencing a stomach ache. So these are good cues to put together with the response of I have a tummy ache or I have a stomach ache. So now let's do the same example with something that's a bit more obscure. I think when our kids have a stomach ache, it's often pretty obvious to us because there's so much visible sign that they're in distress or pain. But what about something like anxiety or feeling anxious? The wonderful thing is that as a parent, you know your child better than anybody else. So you know all of the things that are going to maybe be something that's anxiety provoking for your child. So what is public accompaniment for anxiety? Well, maybe you're in a location that has historically been something difficult for your child. Maybe you can see that they're sweating. Maybe you're in an environment that's very noisy and crowded, two things that are often very distressing for your child. Collateral responses. What are the other behaviors that your child engages in when they're experiencing high levels of anxiety? Maybe they are covering their ears to try to escape the loud sounds. Maybe they're running away or trying to escape the situation altogether. Or maybe they're beginning to cry or show some sort of emotional response. So we use all of these clues to sort of signal that my child is experiencing anxiety. Now I'm going to work on language development so that I can give my kid the words to use in the future when they're feeling the same internal state. Oh, it looks like you're feeling anxious. How are you feeling? Say, I'm feeling anxious. or I'm having anxiety. Giving them words to describe how it is that we think that they're feeling on the inside based on all of the clues in the environment that have signaled to us that this might be going on. So this process of teaching language is essentially identifying a thing that we want to describe and then giving our child the words to use to describe it. It's the same process as when we teach them to identify or label things that they can see. We just have the benefit of being able to see it as well. So if I hold up an apple and I say, "What is it?" It's an apple. Can you say apple? What is it? It's an apple. Great. Now we're working on teaching you to identify an apple. So we're doing the exact same thing. It's just that we can't see the internal state that we're hoping to teach our children to talk about. So we have to use all of these clues in order to come up with what our best guess is on how they're feeling, and then giving them that language to describe it. If you can provide multiple opportunities to do this in the moment, remember that our kids learn best through repetition. The reason that it is so difficult to teach the identifying of an internal state is because we have to wait for natural opportunities to present themselves. When I'm working to teach my child to talk about an apple, I can create hundreds of opportunities for that. Hold the apple up, say, "What is it? What do you see?" An apple, great. Down the line, I pick up another apple. "Hey, look at it. What is it?" "It's an apple." We're in the grocery store. I see an apple. "Hey, what is it?" "It's an apple." So I'm in control of creating all of the opportunities to be able to talk about tangible things. But we need the internal state to be present in order for this language building process to work most efficiently. So I cannot just say, "Hey, when you have that funny feeling or when you go into a crowd, how are you feeling?" We really want to pair the actual state, the actual internal event that they're experiencing with the language at that moment. So we're left to just wait for these moments to naturally arise. So when they do arise, if you can create multiple opportunities to work on this language in the moment, that's ideal, because the more repetition that we can provide our child, the better they're going to get at it, the quicker they're going to acquire that new language. And obviously, this is not a perfect practice. This process is the exact same way that neurotypical kids learn how to describe their internal events. No parent has access to what's going on inside of their child. However, neurotypical kids might just have an already existing repertoire of language to describe these things before using these words to describe their own state. So that might be the benefit that a neurotypical kid has. But I don't know what's going on inside of anybody else's body. I only have my own experience. That's why doctors have created those pain scale charts, because there's really no two people that experience the same sensations in exactly the same way. What feels like anxiety to me may feel very different for other people, but we have all sort of come up with general language to talk about this feeling that happens when we have a physiological response to something in the environment that is causing stress. So sometimes we may get it wrong. Sometimes we might try to get our child to say a specific word to describe their feeling, and that might not be the feeling that they're experiencing inside. However, if we know our kid and we know what their cues are, we can be watching for these opportunities to come up where we see public accompaniment or events or things in the environment that often go along with some sort of internal state. And we can look for those collateral responses or those behaviors that my child engages in often when they're feeling some sort of internal state. I use those two things to clue me in to what the internal state might be, and then I provide that language to my child and prompt them to say the words, to use the words, to answer questions about how they're feeling as many times as I can. That makes sense. Obviously, if your child has a stomachache, they might not be in a place to do 15 opportunities where they're talking about my tummy hurting. But like I said, we have to wait till these opportunities present themselves naturally. So if you can capitalize on that natural presentation of the internal state, have multiple opportunities for your child to practice that language, you're going to set the stage for your child to begin using this language in the future when they're experiencing another similar internal state. This gives you such a gift. If you see that your child is bothered by something, you could say, "Hey, what's going on? How are you feeling?" And now your child has the language to describe. "I'm feeling anxious. It's too loud. It's too noisy. There's too many people. I'd like to go outside and take a break." All amazing language to be able to remedy or fix this internal state that might be something uncomfortable for them. Or if it's a physical state, "My stomach hurts. Can I have some medicine? May I have some Pepto-Bismol? My tummy aches. I need to go lay down." So not only do we want to give them the language to describe how they're feeling, and then build on that to give them requests that they can make to try to fix the problem. This is giving our kids independence. This is allowing that they're going to be able to go out into the world and be around people who might not be as familiar with all of their signals and cues. But that's okay, because our child now has the language to describe how they're feeling and be able to ask for the things that they need in order to fix the problem. I hope you found this helpful. I hope you can use these techniques and strategies in order to work on developing this robust repertoire of language to talk about how your children are feeling and some of their internal states or private events. Like and subscribe and follow along for more information on how to best support your autistic kids.